Welcome in 710 ESPN Seattle. This is our trade deadline lounge here. I'm Curtis Rogers, joined by Mike Salk of Brock and Salk, and then our Mariners insider Shannon Drayer. And guys, the Mariners making a move just as we've sat down, adding Cameron Maben from the Miami Marlins. Mike, what do you think about this?
I just kind of look overall at what they've done because I don't know that any of the moves themselves are, groundbreaking. But when you look at it, they looked at all of their weaknesses and said, okay, how do we address a bunch of these? How do we, without giving up much in the way of prospects, which they don't have to give up, how do you address the need for the fact that your bullpen has been overtaxed and overused in all these one-run games? Okay, they go out and get 3 relievers. How do you address the fact that Guillermo Heredia has not been a major league hitter this year? They go out and get Cameron Maben, who has been in the major leagues for a long time. Whether or not he's a major league hitter or not, I guess remains to be seen. And they found DePoto kinds of guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at what they did with the bullpen, I think that's what he wanted from the get-go, and it just hasn't worked for him in putting together a bullpen that is going to shorten games for him, that ideal model, we only need 5 innings from the starter, and then we can go to any number of options in the bullpen. I think that was something that he set out to do this year, and I think because of injury and underperformance, he just wasn't able to do it. And then you had that kind of little matter of the starters actually didn't need that much help for a good amount of the season. Now you see them start to pull back on all of the starters, not letting them get the pitch count up as high. You've got guys that you've got question marks about because they haven't pitched deep into seasons recently. So I think that the bullpen moves help in that regard. I think you also, I'm really intrigued by Warren in particular, who has pitched so well away from Yankee Stadium. I think there might have been a little bit of upside that he saw
So he pitches
there.
better when he's not in like a minor league ballpark like Yankee
Absolutely,
Stadium.
and he had good numbers to
It's funny how
start
that
with.
works. He's a righty. He throws to a lot of lefties because of it. Oh, yeah. Hey, look, Yankee Stadium's a real great place for that.
Right. I mean, he survived there, but he thrived away. So, that's a better fit, I would think, as well. He can also swing if they need to, if they have that need in the rotation. But, more relievers, that's what Jerry DePoto does. He's going to get as many as he possibly can, and somehow it's all going to work out. The Maben interest ad, that's one where I think it was probably a little tougher. Something that Jerry's talked quite a bit about is he's got to be careful what he takes out of the clubhouse, not just what he brings in. And obviously roster spots are going to have to be created for all of these guys. And you're mentioning Heredia. That's who I would assume.
Yeah, what do you think? How do you roster
I think Heredia
configure all this?
goes down, I think, for the rest of August, but he's going to be a September call-up for sure. I think Maben takes over that role. Whether it's an upgrade over Heredia remains to be seen. Maben still can go get it in the outfield. Maybe not to the level that Heredia can, but I don't know if we're going to see a drop-off from Heredia, but I think he's the guy that gets sent down and then comes back.
He would almost have to be. I mean, it's hard to imagine it would be Gamble. At least he gets on base. He can pinch hit late. Obviously, Span has basically become the starter at that point, and you're not going to send Haniger down. So there's almost no other way to do this, especially when you're trying to keep an extra guy in the pen, and they just added 3 guys in the pen without subtracting anybody. I'm a little curious to see even how that is going to work, especially with some possibility that Felix may end up in the pen here in the next week or so. Yeah, I know it's horrible and shocking to say. I can't even believe they're going to let him make another start. I mean, I think the only reason they are is because they don't have another option right now.
I don't think they have room for him in the pen.
Well, I don't think they have room for him in the rotation, so now what?
I don't know, and this is something interesting that's going to have to be addressed. Jerry DePoto stayed away from that question yesterday. I don't blame him. There have to conversations that have to be
back,
said.
I think.
Yeah, yours too, huh?
Kind of hurting my back if I'm Felix. I just be on my old DL for a little bit here while we figure this thing out. A little back.
Might have to take a reliever with him as well. It's not a lot of optional guys down there.
Could Juan Nicasio have a little knee issue crop up again?
Could be a little knee. Maybe Nick Vincent has a little back again. He had back earlier, so
It's horrible when these things pop
might
up
have
like
to look
that.
into chiropractors next year.
I think all those things are almost going to be necessary. And in Nicasio's case, I don't even know if it would be pretend. I mean, I think he's been dealing with something throughout the year. So if you have an opportunity to sit him down for a little bit, try to get him right, you can start to see what a pennant race looks like here now down the stretch.
Yeah, I think going back to Adam Warren, there's a good possibility he could take over Nicasio's role and be that bridge to Colome and Diaz, who have been the best setup man closer combo for the last month or so.
Is he that 2-inning guy that everyone was talking about a year ago that all of a sudden seemed to disappear when no one else could find it? Yeah, the Chris Davinsky.
You know what? I asked Scott Service about that like 2 days ago. Whatever happened to the Davinsky model? Because it was all the rage. That's all you heard about, and where'd it go? And he said, well, he hasn't pitched as well. Well, not just Davinsky, but he said literally those guys are hard to find.
Yeah, they tried to do it with Big Max Posey. Obviously, that didn't work, and
Back to starter.
They tried it with David Phelps. He got hurt, so yeah. I mean, they've just sort of been unable to find it. Bottom line: are they better today than they were a couple days ago? Yes, probably. Are they good enough today to make a legitimate run here in the next 2 months?
I think they are. I think the bullpen, as much as we've been focusing on the offense, I think the bullpen longer term was a little bit more of a concern. You just weren't seeing the consistency from the right-handers in particular, and you haven't had that second lefty in a long time. And I think in getting Duke, another thing that does is now you can get Pazos more into those leverage situations, and he can face righties, and he's faced them quite well.
Been better against them.
He's been better against righties. Duke can be that true left-on-left, lefty situational guy. And so I think that gives you something that you didn't have there. And, again, intrigued about Warren. We're not even talking about Tui, so interested to see him come up, and that's more of a velo guy, which they haven't had consistently as much up until they got Colomé. So, yeah, I think the bullpen, I think they have given a couple of games away with the bullpen. I think this helps solidify that a little bit. And I'm really interested in what you said, Curtis, and that, yeah, if you do send Heredia down and Maben doesn't make a huge amount of sense, you look at how much of an upgrade is that. Maybe it's the professional at bats, quite like Span. And you've seen the impact.
And that's not nothing. I mean, that is important.
That is a very real thing. But if it isn't, you're not giving up much for that. You can bring Heredia back. Is it an all-out battle between those two, after August? We'll see.
Yeah, and you brought up Zach Duke, and when I was looking at his numbers yesterday after he was traded here, that whip of 1.58 really did not put me at ease at all. But then you look a little deeper, it's soft contact that he's allowing. He's only allowed 5 extra base hits this year, 58.5% ground ball rate.
No homers.
No, so he's keeping the ball in the yard. It may not be sexy the way he's getting his outs, but he's been effective this season.
The one thing I just keep thinking is, okay, what does this do for the clubhouse? And I don't mean the chemistry necessarily in there, but just sort of their confidence. What we've watched here over the last couple of weeks has been completely different than anything from the first couple of months of this Mariners season. It felt like everybody collectively ran out of gas. And then when that happened, maybe the confidence dwindles a little bit, and now you're not the same team that goes into the 7th inning tied and says, we're definitely going to win that game. All of a sudden there's doubt. And I think Friday night was a good example. They found a way to lose that game to the Angels, who seemed a lot more confident despite selling that day. I mean, it was almost backwards. I wonder whether a combination of 3 or 4 moves, a nice win over Houston, coming off the win over the Angels, is that enough to just get the confidence back in these guys, especially the bats?
Honestly, I don't think that it's going to have much of an impact, but I think what they did the last 2 days is, I think that over the last week in Anaheim, that's the first time where I've really seen it maybe start to waver. Going into the break, there was almost defiance. They were fine. The offense was fine. They were scoring all sorts of runs in their mind, and it was 3 a game.
Did they not watch the games they were playing? Because in my mind, they were not doing any of those things. They went to Colorado and didn't hit a home run.
Oh, no. I talked to D. Gordon.
They did hit home runs. I'm sorry.
No, they didn't. We missed those apparently. But we had 14 runs in 2 games.
So everything was fine. They scored in like 4 innings in 4 games.
Absolutely, yeah. It was brutal in Colorado. They didn't see it that way, and I was like, okay, well, that's their confidence is up. I guess that's a good thing. Hopefully things turn. They didn't for a while, and I think in Anaheim you started to feel it a little bit, but not until Anaheim. So they come back with a 7-run inning on Sunday, and then last night's game was huge. And I think that you looked at him, and I looked at him, and, oh, yeah, there is a good offense in there somewhere. I remember that. I think they saw the same thing.
That's the trade deadline. Coming up at 1 o'clock p.m. today. Stick around on 710sports.com and also on our Twitter account at 710ESPN Seattle for more video updates. If any more trades happen throughout the day, keep it right here.